Alright, part two of the Big Flats adventure. I get kind of kicked off the property of this gas station. I have a sign that says Shelter Cove, that's where I'm trying to go. And finally some people came up to me like, man, you're never going to get to Shelter Cove. The road is washed out that goes to Shelter Cove, so you're not going to get there tonight. So I still got this drunk Indian who's trying to be friendly with me and say I can go sleep at his house, and I'm like, absolutely not. So I'm thinking I might just pitch my tent somewhere around the town. But it was raining, so I end up going back into the gas station, kind of disappear with this Native American dude, and all of a sudden there's a huge bit of commotion in the gas station, inside the kind of the convenience store in the gas station. And the cops show up. Somebody had gotten punched, knocked out, and was like in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. And no one really knew what happened, but this Native American dude came up to me and was like, "Look, man, that guy was messing with me." And so I asked him to come over in the corner of the convenience store, and I decked him and knocked his ass out. And they had some kind of history or something, but I was like, holy shit, man, I did not need to be any part of this. So I ended up just like, I need to get the fuck out of here. So I walk across the street and there's this motel. Same thing, like late at night, pouring rain, torrential winds, etc., etc. And I'm like, I'm just going to walk over to this motel and hope that they got rooms. And by now it's like 1 in the morning. So as I'm walking into the parking lot of this motel, I get like a tap on my shoulder, and who walks up next to me? This fucking Indian who I'm freaked out that he's going to try something crazy, and he's asking me, "Hey man, I thought you were going to come stay at my house." So I'm trying to come up with excuses in a nice way while I have no intention of staying at his house. He kind of disappears. I walk to the motel. I do get a room. It's just like out of the movies, like a shit ass room with like a radiator heater on the wall, and I have no idea what to do. So I called Brendan from my cell phone. Brendan had been out there. He knew the tides. He knew the landscape, and I just talked through it with him for like half an hour in this tiny ass hotel room, hoping that no one would show up at my door during the night. Anyway, Brendan said, "Look, man, you might as well still try to hitchhike to Shelter Cove in the morning. Hopefully this thing passes. You don't ever have to go. So you can always check the beach if the tides are crazy or the ocean is crazy, you can always turn back." So I said, alright. So wake up the next morning and get my sign out, go stand on the road. At this point the rain had kind of passed. It was still a little bit windy, but it was breaking, the weather was breaking. So the guy ends up picking me up, and he had a dog with him in a truck, a nice guy, really nice guy. And I said, asked me what I was doing. I said, yeah, I'm going out to Shelter Cove because I'm going to hike up to Big Flats. And he looked at me crazy. He was like, hey man, I'm going out there right now because this is like one of the biggest storms that's come through here. I hike out to Big Flats every summer all the time, and there's no way you're going to Big Flats because there's like 30 to 40 foot swells at Shelter Cove. So just crushing this the cliffs and the rocks out there on the beach. And they're okay. Well, we might as well. You're going there, we might as well take a look. He was just going to Black Sands Beach just to see these waves. So we get in like mid-morning to Shelter Cove, and he was right. I mean, just like you see in like Goonies or the Oregon coastline, California coastline, big rocks at the beach and just waves coming in. Boom, just crushing these rocks and 20, 30 foot waves, and we're just sitting there like, holy hell, there's no way this is gonna happen. So he says, look man, I'm gonna take off. We had sat there for a couple hours. I said, well, I'm not gonna go back with you. If anything, I'll just stay here in Shelter Cove today at the hotel, and maybe go tomorrow morning. If it doesn't work out by tomorrow morning, I'm out of here. I go into Shelter Cove. We've got like an old marine hotel, really cool place that was built out on the rocks, so you could see the swell coming in and all this stuff. And I just sit out there and drink like coffee and hot chocolate and read my book and just kind of pass the entire afternoon. So this is like a mile from the Black Sands Beach where I was going to start the hike. So I said, at dusk, I said, I'll go back up there and see how the beach looks. So I walked a mile back up to the beach, and it had calmed down at that point. There were some kids out there drinking in the parking lot up above the beach. And I just sat there and I was like, well, I'll wait it out tonight. So instead of putting my tent up, because it was still kind of raining, or I thought it might rain, there was a brand new parking lot like state-owned parking lot and a brand new freaking bathroom, and the bathroom was open. And I said, I'm gonna put my sleeping bag and tent, or my sleeping pad down here, read a book, and check the tide. The high tide was at 3 a.m. So I knew sometime after 3 a.m. I could check the tide, and if it looked good, then I'd go. So ended up kind of going in and out of sleep. I had a little travel clock with me. Woke up about 5 o'clock. The sun was just coming up, and the swell had really died down. And there's a cliff kind of overlooking. The parking lot was up on a cliff, and then the cliff's overlooking the ocean here. And things had died down. The sun was just coming up, and I was like, "This is it. This is go time or no time." And so I said, "Fuck it. I'm gonna at least start," And I was the big worry. There was plenty of room to walk. I didn't know how long I could do it, but you could just look 10 miles down the way. You could see all the way the coastline all for miles. So it looked pretty good. The biggest thing would be like some type of rogue wave come up and just snatch me up and take me away. So I was like, fuck it, I'm doing it. So I don't know how far 10 miles is. I start walking and I'm hoofing too. I'm like, I don't want to miss the tide. I don't want anything. I want to get off this beach as soon as possible. On Kyle's email, he had said 2 or 3 rivers, little creeks that you cross, and there'd be a few little shelters made out of driftwood and stuff. Well, I crossed like 10 rivers because there had been so much rain that there was way more rivers coming off the mountainside than when he crossed these, walked this beach a few months ago. So I was getting nervous that I had gone too far and, just had a little anxiety with that. Finally, the cliffside started to fall away, and there was after 2 or 3 hours, there was a kind of a meadow that I could crawl up on. I'm like, this has got to be it, man. I am close. Got up off the beach, so I felt much safer there. And ultimately saw off in the distance across a bigger river, there was some tarping and stuff out right where there was a point where there was a wave. I could see it. I'm like, that's got to be the spot, man. So I tried to kind of hide. I was hoping I could sneak up on Kyle. Walked another, mile or so to the river and kept myself hidden. Sure enough, Kyle had spotted me. He must have been looking as I came up over that bluff for the first time off the beach. He was running like from his end onto his bank of the river. Sees me, we see each other, and it's like total fucking celebration. Kyle strips off all his clothes, dives into the river, swims across, and meets me on my bank of the river. And we sit down in the sand, and I had like blueberries and granola and carrots, fresh vegetables, and Snickers bars, and peanut butter, and we ended up, hanging out there that whole afternoon, and I spent a couple weeks out there with him at Big Flats. But I think that's a great story of, just some pretty gnarly adventure that has helped define who I am.